Oh, what is that? That's actually a really cool sound. Listen to that. One of the most overlooked muscles that I typically see is this band of muscle right here, as in your flexor digitorum longus and your flexor hallucis longus down over here. And if you think about when we get knee pain, plantar fasciitis, like hip pain and stuff, we usually get this valgus collapses and the knee buckles inwards every time that we step or jump or things like that, which is creating this internal torque of that knee and the hip, and the body doesn't like that. So we end up getting IT band issues and stuff because the body's trying to pull out, because this muscle is actually pulling all the fascia inwards. And working on it is super important, but what I see is that most people don't know, one, where to find it, and two, once they find it, how to actually work on it to actually get the best results. So, very simple. If you find that shin bone right over here, that's actually a really cool sound. Listen to that. Oh, I love that. All right, so once you find that shin bone, you're gonna work on the inside of it. You don't wanna work on a bone, obviously nothing will happen. You wanna work on the inside of that bone. So up over here is called your flexor digitorum longus. If you press hard enough, it actually gets into the tib posterior, which is pretty damn nasty. But when you find it, you'll know. It's one of those that you're like, oh, holy shit. Yep, there's that tension right there. You can use your thumbs over here and the fingers to wrap around the opposite side and literally just squeeze down and add a little bit of a rotation. And then once you found it, this is the biggest, most important part, is to move the foot. Once you move the foot, you'll literally feel the tissue start gliding underneath it. And that's typically what happens with muscles, is that muscles fall within pockets of fascia. And if the muscles are supposed to glide over each other, issues happen is that if the muscle overlapping each other can glide because the fascia in between is actually gluey and stuck, instead of moving over each other, it pulls the muscle underneath. So instead of the foot being able to do this, the whole leg is stuck and it does this, or maybe a tiny little bit of movement, but it's not giving you the movement that it needs to do the task that you want it to do. So give the tissues what it actually wants by pinning it and moving it. What happens is that when you're pressing on top of multiple layers and you're telling the layers underneath to move, it's telling that fascia to start gliding. The brain's like, oh, it's tight, but I can move. So it actually just starts sending signals down to that muscle to release that tension. And that's what we think about when we break up fascial adhesions and stuff like that. That's typically what's happening. The brain is just telling it to let go. So if your hands are getting tired from pinning it and moving, you can use something like a lacrosse ball. Just grab the ball, lean into the leg. So notice I'm bending my legs at 90 degree angles so that I can lean into it. Use the opposite hand, pin on that spot. Same thing, move the foot up and down. I have an exercise database of all bunch of releases that you can download on my website as well. Just click out my link in the bio. But ultimately, you just want to find this muscle over here, pin it, move the limb, and breathe into it. Next very important thing is to try not to think that you have to push so hard that you can barely breathe and you're like, and you have to like force your way through it. You're tensing other muscles up in order to try and release another overcompensating muscle. So you're basically compensating to release a compensating muscle, which doesn't make any sense. Try to actually just reduce that tension as much as you can. Start at like a 3 or a 4, just pin on it. Even if it barely feels like anything's happening, that your brain actually trusts that more. It will probably release even faster. So try not to push it to a 10 if a 2 or 3 is all you need to let that go. And while you're working on muscles like that are this chronically tight, it's not going to dissipate completely in the beginning. It's going to take a little bit more time for the brain to start letting it go. But if you do it on a daily basis for like 2 weeks per se, 90% of the time, you'll realize within the 1.5 to 2 week mark, that tension will be 70% dissipated. And it will average like a 4 or 5 out of 10 instead of the 8 or a 9 that it was typically before. And basically, the only way you'll realize if this is actually working or not is test a movement that hurt in the beginning, let's say walking or whatever it is, be it plantar fasciitis or ankle issues, knee issues, hip issues, and stuff like that. Lower back pain sometimes comes from here as well. So test that movement that hurt, release this band over here. Start from the top, close to the knee, all the way down until you get close to the ankle joint over there. Find those tender points, breathe through it, work throughout that range. If it doesn't hurt, don't move that, like you don't need to release that spot. Just keep going down the spots that you feel like you actually need. Work on it a little bit, come back up, retest the movement. If it feels better, keep working on that so that you can keep adding progress. If it doesn't feel any different at all, then it's probably not this specific issue. It could be caused by something else. I'm gonna add another video next time on how to release the adductors, TFL, all of that type of stuff, and we'll go from there. Andy Shea from Moon Reborn. Have an awesome day. Hope that helps.